scriptures that are in part of the lectionary. All of them are listed here. They're listed on your order of service also. This morning at our Bible study, we focused on the Gospel of Luke. As we read Luke 17, verses 5 through 10. The apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." And he replied, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to a mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it will obey you. Suppose one of you had a servant plowing or looking after his sheep. Would he say to the servant when he comes in from the field, 'Come along now and sit down to eat'? Or would he not rather say, 'Prepare my supper, get yourself ready and wait on me while I eat and drink. After that, you may eat or drink'? Would he thank the servant because he did what he was told to do? So you also, when you have done everything you were told to do, should say, 'We are unworthy servants. We have only done our duty.'" Thus ends our reading this morning. God's blessing on it and God's blessing on us. The title of our sermon this morning is "One Brick at a Time." It's from Proclaim. A wall stood in front of a man's bakery. It was 16 feet high and 30 feet long, and one summer, for reasons only known to the man, he demolished it. He then asked his 12-year-old son, Will, and his brother, Henry, to rebuild the wall by hand. The boys were stunned. It seemed like a Herculean task, bordering on the impossible, but they got to work because they were obedient to their father. And every day after school, they mixed concrete and they laid brick upon brick. And after a year and a half of hard work, they laid their final brick and stood back to examine the new wall. And their father came to them and said, "Now, don't you ever tell me you can't do something." Then he walked back into the bakery. The boy named Will never forgot the lesson of that project. "I learned that you don't set out to build a wall. You don't start out by saying, 'I'm going to build the biggest and the baddest wall that's ever been built.' You don't start there. You say, 'I'm going to lay this brick as perfect a brick as can be laid.' And if you do that every single day, soon you will have a wall." That boy grew up to be a successful actor and rapper, Will Smith. Each and every time we take a step, we generate 6 to 8 watts of energy. But there's never been any way to capture that energy. So it just dissipates into the air. And a few years ago, an architectural firm in London looked at ways to capture energy and turn it into electricity. And at Victoria Station, for example, there are 34,000 people traveling through every hour, rushing towards their trains. And that's a huge number of steps. If you harness that energy, says the firm's director, you can actually generate a very useful power source. So according to Fast Company magazine, this architectural firm is working to develop a vibration harnessing sensors. These sensors would be implanted in the structure of the train stations to capture the steps of the commuters and turn that motion into electricity and then store it into batteries. In this case, success comes not from putting bricks in a wall, but from putting sensors in the floor. Yet both projects yield good results or achieved by one step at a time. One sensor at a time, one brick at a time. And in Luke 17, the apostles say to Jesus, increase our faith. They feel as though their faith is too minuscule to make a difference. So they plead for Jesus to enlarge it. They want to gaze at a completed 30-foot wall and to feel the power of a fully charged battery. But Jesus understands the importance of the individual bricks and the individual steps. He says to them, if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, uproot yourself and go put yourself into the sea. Now imagine what it was like when the first computer was put together. I mean, it couldn't do very much. Those personal computers, I mean, you know, the one, what was it? The one that Steve Jobs did, you know, I mean, it had about, what? How much memory did it have? About as much to type a sentence or something. So if somebody said to you right now, wow, that's a computer, wow. But how many of you have cell phones? Come on, admit it. Yeah, yeah. So how much power is there in a cell phone? What can those things actually do? How much time did it take to get to that point? What is it that we want for our world? What is it that we want for our families? What is it that we want for our communities? What steps are we willing to take? How many bricks are we willing to lay? How much do we want our families to grow and to improve or to flourish? I saw Hazel come into church this morning, and I'm going, Hazel, she's about this tall now. I remember when her mother was in my arms. So here is her mother all grown up with 3 children. I mean, it's mind-boggling. But it's through our steps of care. I mean, no matter where I am, I would say there are people who go, hi, Grandma Voris. It's absolutely heartwarming when Malcolm says that to me, wherever he happens to be. Whether we're at the library, whether we're at the mansion, hi, Grandma Voris. Because I think in his heart and soul, he knows that I care. How many people know that we care? How much do we do, not just for our families, but to people, for people who are in need? How much does Jesus want us to do? Where do we get the messages? Whether it's, well, okay, I'm going to sort of lay Pat out just for a little bit. She says, you know, I'm a shy, retiring person. And, you know, until I feel it and I talk to God about what I should do, and then the answer comes to me. And Pat has served young women, single mothers, who maybe not got the training, had gotten the training they needed to be the best mother they could be. But she gathered a group of these young ladies after she prayed, and God guided her in terms of what she should do. Each one of us has tasks that God is offering us to do to make this world a better place. With compassion, with passion, with love. So, congregations are challenged to gather all of their gifts, both small and large, because the world is in need of the ministry that Christian churches provide. We live in a world in which people are increasingly isolated and cut off from meaningful relationships and supportive communities. Churches are among the few places in our society where people can come together in small groups and develop deep spiritual friendships. Rick Warren, the pastor of Saddleback Church, has rightly said that God has wired us in such a way that we only get well in community. Now, Saddleback is a mega church, and it has a variety of programs that meet everybody's needs. And, of course, we here at Middletown can't meet everybody's needs. But we can listen. We can direct. We can find places where people can have the services that they need. And we can pray for them. Perceived social support refers to whether a person believes they could get emotional support, advice, or just community from others with fun things to do. In Luke 17, Jesus tells the story of a slave who comes to his master because after the day of working in the fields, Jesus asked that the master would reward the slave with a place at the dinner table. How likely is that? Or if he would be more likely to say to the slave, prepare a place for me and serve me. And then later, you can eat and drink. The apostle knows that the slave is not going to rest until his work is done both outside and inside the house. And the slave is not going to be simply thanked for doing what he was commanded. He is doing what is his duty. In our Bible study this morning, we were asked to decide what's the difference between doing your duty because it's your duty or doing it because of love. How much do we actually do out of love? That's the focus God wants for us. The focus of our lives should be out of love, respect, appreciation, and honor. May we all look at our lives from that perspective and all offer to those we meet that love of Christ. Amen.